So this is the RE Implementation Lab, and welcome to our listening audience. And this is about the theme of resilience for February 2020. The two announcements I have are that we have a dedicated packet for high school youth groups now. There's a free sample on the web. It's called On the Road Together, the youth packet. It's on the Soul Matters site. And the second announcement is that our next meeting will go back to Wednesday, first and second Wednesdays of the month. The February 5th meeting will be about our May theme of threshold. And that will be the brainstorm meeting. It's not recorded. And our February 12th meeting will be implementing the next month's theme, which will be wisdom for March. This is the Thursday meeting, and I think I've managed to confuse our regular people. So I'm welcoming just a few people this time. So resilience, what I do with these implementation labs is to give you an overview for about 15 minutes so you can get Katie's view of the packet in 15 minutes, and if that's all you need, go for it. And then later on, if we have more people join us, we do challenges, opportunities, and solutions and takeaways. So resilience. What I usually do is create buckets, or might be bucket is another word for the lens through which I'm going to view the theme for each session. And for February, there's 4 sessions. And it's the 4 key things we hold on to make it through those hard times that take resilience. Our grit, each other, our humor, and the earth. And the each other part of the packet happens to be suggested for Valentine's Day. And this is one of the things I like about theme ministry, is that rather than do the sentimental Valentine's Day stuff that I always used to do, just pull out the doilies and talk about how much you love your mom and dad or something like that, we can say, here's an opportunity to look at Valentine's Day through the theme of resilience and how the support from our community helps us make it through the hard times. So the other thing that happens in February is that it's Black History Month. And we like to tell these stories throughout the year. And indeed, our denomination is spending a lot of time trying to integrate these stories which have been forgotten or ignored in the past. But since it is Black History Month in February, I put in a little mini unit at the top of each packet on one of the 4 African American leaders in our history. These people were Ethelred Brown, John Cashin, a couple named William and Ellen Craft, and Francis Harper. These are all people who met racism with resilience. And that mini unit isn't really connected to the lens that's being looked at for that unit, that session, but it's connected to the whole month. So I invite your teachers to use it or not, but to be aware that here's a story of a person with resilience that fits with Black History Month. I wanted to also bring attention to the third couple, William and Ellen Craft. There's a wonderful article about their story in Smithsonian magazine, which I gave the link to. And she was a quadroon and passed for white. And they came up with a scheme for her, the wife, to dress up as a young man. They gave this young man a hurt arm so that she didn't have to write since she was illiterate. and her husband posed as this young man's slave. So they actually took first-class accommodations on the train in their journey to the north and had some really harrowing experiences of someone saying, "Oh, I think I recognize you from somewhere," and things like that. It's a story that deserves to be told. Unfortunately, there's no children's books about it at this point, but the Smithsonian article has a few pictures of them, and it's got a great description of this escape from slavery. There's a fifth person that I highlight because we always, well, okay, not we. I always used to think, well, gee, isn't this sweet? Susan B. Anthony's birthday is right around Valentine's Day, so we always did a little program on Susan B. And then, like always, I discovered the story of Fannie Barrier Williams, an African-American woman who was just as incredible as Susan B. And of course, we don't know about her that much because she was African-American. She started a hospital. She was one of the founding members of the NAACP. She started a settlement house. She started a home for girls, and she started the National Federation for Afro-American Women, as well as worked on women's suffrage. And she was the only African-American woman invited to speak at Susan B. Anthony's memorial service. So, and her birthday is right around Valentine's Day. So these two women could be told as a pairing. Okay, so now let's get into the sessions. Chapel, I chose Climb Every Mountain for the suggested tune. And it's a little problematic because when the abbess in Sound of Music starts singing Climb Every Mountain to Maria, as she's describing how you have to be resilient in the face of what life is going to throw at you, she goes into a beautiful, to us adults, heavy contralto vibrato. And my experience is that children tend to get really uncomfortable with that sound. And I'll share a story from my own experience. We had choral ages right after the music. And the music, no one had told me that this was one of our big operatic sopranos of the community coming in to sing. The children were sitting on the steps and she was standing on the dais, so they were just under her. And when she started to sing, at least 3 of the children put their hands over their ears for the rest of the song. And we were all fairly embarrassed, and the singer took it in stride. She was wonderful. But ever after, we decided we'd try to communicate a little more when we had someone who sang like that, because the children didn't really think it was so cool. Anyway, so you don't want to get that Climb Every Mountain going and have them do that. So I found a version by Barbara Streisand and Jamie Foxx, which I think would work really well to introduce the kids to that song and resilience and not have that vibrato. In the preschool part of the packet, I just wanted to tell you my delight in finding the simple things that illustrate resilience for the preschoolers. The one simple thing I found was the little engine that could. It was a, oh, of course moment. And that whole mantra that the little engine sings, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Isn't that what we want our preschoolers to remember about resilience? And they don't necessarily have the word in their vocabulary, but I recommend that when the words are being used, so we always try and try again, that we put in that word resilience now and then, and they'll get it from context. And then when they hear the adults talking about resilience, they'll know that that is the word, the mantra. So for the elementary school children, the number 1 session is about grit as one of the gifts we have one of the key things we hold on to make it through hard times. And this is a common psychological term now. Everybody's talking about kids' grit. So I suggest that the children try to do something that is a little hard, that they may not have the skills for. It might be learning to dribble a soccer ball, and this is an opportunity to have a senior hire come in and teach them. It might be finger knitting, it might be origami, which always is harder than it looks. And I actually did a program in Toolbox of Faith, which I authored for Tapestry, where you learn to hammer a nail. There's a certain way to hammer a nail. If you use your wrist, that doesn't let the power of your body hammer that nail in. You use your hand, your shoulder. Anyway, there's some suggestions in there. And another person suggested that any skill can be tried with the non-dominant hand. In my case, it's my left hand. So try writing your name. And this is something that you're going to fail at, but then you have the grit to keep trying. That's the moral of the story. The second session, like I mentioned earlier, is the Valentine session. That's where we are loved back into life by each other when we experience hard times. The book I suggest is Love by Matt Dillapena. He wrote the famous Last Stop on Market Street, which everyone loves. And I just wanted to mention a little thing about why I chose that particular book. Not just that it has high marks and I really like it, but it also has an illustration of the sad and hard times that people experience. There are several reviews on Amazon that say this book is just not appropriate for children. Some of them say it's not appropriate for preschool children. I might agree with that. But I suggest it for elementary school children because they know well that there are sad and hard times. Look at how popular Harry Potter is. I think that's part of the appeal of those books, Harry Potter. So this goes along with an old belief I held about religious education. In the 80s, I started talking about why are we just teaching Sunday school? If we only teach Sunday school, that when you come here, we talk about joy and light, and community, and all these lovely things, but we never touch on the fact that we're all brokenhearted, that there are sad and hard times in our lives. The children will find those answers in another place. So that's my little segue about why I chose that book, because it does have some people, the word he uses is flaming out. There's a picture of a dad stomping off. The mother is in tears and the little child is under the table crying. That's part of love, isn't it? Let's see where we are. Just about ready to finish my overview. When I did the third session on our humor, I shared a story that was from my tapestry writing days. When I was writing Toolbox of Faith, every tool represented a piece of faith formation. So a hammer represented justice. Actually, sandpaper represented love because it sort of sands off the rough edges of all of our existences. And my editor said to me, you just can't include humor. And I know that humor helps me get through some tough times. And if I didn't have it in there, I was getting a little hot under the collar. She said, no, this is, this was one of the first Tapestry of Faith curriculums that we were writing, so there was no template, all this stuff. She said, we can't do humor, this is supposed to be serious UUA stuff. And I said, humor gets me through. I had to go to her boss and who agreed with me, and then we moved on. But that's why I include humor. And for the littlest ones, I called it silliness. And it's just a way that we bolster our resilience. The final one is the earth. And the approach I took was to look at the elements and how the elements of earth, fire, water, and air teach us the story of their own resilience. I've been married to 2 geologists now, so I know rocks are very resilient. They live through they exist through glaciers, they exist through erosion. The suggestion for using fire, it's not as a play thing, it's during the chalice lighting, and how fire is resilient and also dangerous. What else is there? Air is resilient. So I suggest in the Wonder Box there's a balloon, and you blow it up and you let it go, and it flips all over, and that sets the tone for our humor. Okay, the last thing I wanted to mention is this book, Fairy Houses, is what I do to suggest a nature activity to go outside and build these, if it's the season to do it where you live. This is Tracy King's Fairy Houses, and I use this at the first couple times I did a program based on fairy houses. I was a little in trepidation because I wasn't sure, should I call these trolls? You know, where am I going to go with this? But with both middle schoolers and elementary school children, I find they are so attracted to the beauty of creating a house only out of natural found materials that they'll spend hours doing this. I happen to be doing it at a camp, so we did have hours. And then, of course, for resilience, the focus is when you pay attention, when you're very mindful to the things in the park or in your playground, outside among the landscaping bushes, that when you're mindful of these materials, you see them in a different way, and you can feel in your body and your core the resilience of the earth when you're building with these, the beauty of these things that we may never pay attention to, these little stones, and yet suddenly they become beautiful in our eyes. So I hope you all get a chance to do some type of fairy house building, or seeing them, being mindful of the things of the earth. Okay, that's enough for my overview. I'm going to end the recording, but Nicole, will you stay on with me and we can chat a little bit? Okay, and I do have a closing. May you find yourself nearer to the gift of resilience, grit, community, humor, and the earth. And may these gifts make your path a bit easier in this month to come. Blessed be.